We go forever and ever, yeah. You know that I'm much upset, yeah. You wish that you can do better, no, I won't let them, We go forever and ever, yeah. I go and create the pressure, yeah. You wish that you can do better, You wish that you can do better, yeah. Ooh. We go forever and ever. We go forever and ever.
Welcome everyone to Coaching Recession. My name is Michael Rearden, and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about 2023, the disclaimer. I know many people are going to be, well, Michael, I think you're being pretty pessimistic already. It's like, well, we're going to be talking about the negative side because it's important that we talk about negatives too here in Coaching Recession. Because if we're always going to be talking about the positives and never looking at the negatives, then it's going to be very difficult when we get a negative in our life. So we want to be forewarned, basically, if something is not working or something is going to be a possible scenario that we might have to deal with. So one of the possible scenarios that we're going to have to be dealing in 2023 is a possible recession. We might be dealing with civil unrest. We might be dealing with a lot of hardship in our own personal life too. We need to figure out how to navigate through that. The best way to navigate through that is to understand it. And we're going to be breaking down each of those areas right now. This is a video you definitely want to stay tuned for, and you're going to want to understand a little bit more because we need to understand the mindset that's going to happen later this year. Because if we understand it's going to happen, or there's a good possibility that can happen, we are already prepared. We already covered our bases, and we want to make sure that your bases are covered. Because if you are prepared, if you're equipped, no matter what comes your way, you can handle it. My cooperating teacher, he would always say, you have to be ready for bear. And basically that's saying that when you go into the classroom, you don't know what you're going to get. Some days you get perfect students and some days you get a rambunctious class. Doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that you have to be able to handle it. You have to be ready for any situation. You have to be ready for bear. And that idea is basically coined from if you're hiking, for example, and a bear attacks you. Well, what do? You need some bear mace. Maybe you need like a .357 Magnum or a shotgun with a slug round. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go around shooting bears because they just are living their lives in their forest. You're the one who went in their forest. So if they're not in the mood to deal with you, then you have to be equipped to deal with them. So do due diligence, number one, when going into forest with bears. But being ready for bear and just understanding that 2023 can have some difficulties. Just because there's difficulties doesn't mean that you can't be prepared, and it doesn't mean that you will maybe go through this year with no difficulties. So it's kind of like a crapshoot. We can get lucky, or this year can be one of our most trying years yet. I can tell from experience, from cause and effect, from understanding people, mindsets, scenarios, situations, timelines, that this year is going to have many hiccups that many people are going to have to overcome. Now, I'm not saying that everyone's going to have to overcome them. You might have to overcome them, but you might not have to overcome them. You might not be affected at all. And that would be the best situation where your life is not affected, unless your life is affected for the better, of course, right? So you might be in a better situation. That's a good thing, right? We want that. We want to make this the best year yet for you. But what happened if this year is starting off really bad, really rough? Maybe you had a trauma in your life, dealing with grief. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you're trying to figure out how to make ends meet, how to pay your mortgage, how to pay your rent, how to get through. And I'm here to tell you that you're not alone. There's many people that are trying to figure out how can they make it through. How can they pay their mortgage, pay their bills, support their families in this time? Yeah, we already know inflation's up. We already know the economy is not doing too well and there's signs of a recession. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be in a recession. Because in a recession, believe it or not, that's the best time to create wealth. So if you understand that you can create wealth in a recession, now your mindset is right on path, right on track to where it needs to be. I find that for many people, they have a very difficult time trying to stay on track. How can I get my mindset to look at the positive? How can I start to see the opportunities in the problems? How can I see the solutions in the problems? How can I start to see the opportunities in this despair? How can I see the solution in the problems? We just have to change our mindset. We just have to change how we view things. What I find is that many people think that life happens to them rather than them happen to life. Because if life gives you a recession, you say, oh man, there's a recession, my life is over. Oh, I lost all this money in the stock market. Oh, I can't buy this or I can't do this because there's a recession. The world said what you can or you can't do. Versus you say, oh, there's a recession. What can I do? What opportunities are there for me? How can I be better? How can I come out after this recession better? since we're in the year 2023, we should just always have that way of thinking in our mind. How can I make this year the best year yet? But then also, how do I handle any situation or any difficulties or turmoil and come out on top? For many people, they're going to have a very difficult time doing that. And the reason why they're going to have a difficult time is because your brain is not primed for it. Their brain is not primed for all the negativity that's going to come their way, even though we give ourselves negativity every single day. We watch mainstream media, we watch all these dramas on TV full of negativity. So our brain is already focused on the negative. So what's the point if we have some negatives in our life? What's the difference? Well, the difference is, do we have to take action on certain negatives? No, we don't. For example, if we're watching TV and then we find out one of the characters cheated on someone, we might say, whoa, that's negative, that's juicy. But then we say to ourselves, does it affect me? No, it doesn't. It can be fictional. Even if it is real, it's not our life. But until it is our life, then we don't pay attention, because at some point it will be our life and we need to figure out, oh, it is our life. What do we do? Now, what I can tell you that we have to do in order to understand the situation or to figure out the solutions in our problems is that we have to be able to strengthen our minds. We have to be resilient in the sense of what we are going to be capable of. For example, and I love this example, I used it a lot when I first started the podcast, is if you're on the treadmill and you're running and you're running and you're running and you said, whoa, I got to stop. I'm going to have a heart attack. I want you to keep on going. I want you to keep on running and I want you to keep on moving, and I don't want you to hit that stop button. I don't want you to hit the slow down button. I want you to keep on moving. And I want you to keep doing it for another 2-3 minutes maybe, because the brain is telling you to stop, and the only thing you have to do to train the brain is to not stop when it says to stop, because then you're showing your brain exactly what you're capable of, who is boss. And I do it all the time when I'm at the gym. I say, okay, I can only do 10, and I'm doing 10 and I'm like, one more, do one more. And I do one more. And then so it's like, take that brain, because I understand the brain is there to limit me. You never know. You might need some energy for fight or flight. You never know. Someone's going to try to come kill you. So you have to be able to run out from that situation. But we live in a very comfortable world. But in 2023, what would happen if there was a civil war? What would we do? Would we just always be sitting and waiting and hoping that we don't have to use any of this energy because something could happen? I mean, if we just look at the riots and the protests for George Floyd, something as a simple protest can turn violent. And we have to be ready and understand that the times that we're living in is going to be different than the times when we were doing peaceful protests and supporting different organizations for different reasons, for supporting different communities. But what I can tell you that has happened that's different than any other year, and what I can tell you after time, is that many people, they're going downhill now. What that basically means is that they, at some point, are not bringing home what they were bringing home, whether it be money, happiness, love, affection, all of that, right? There's a lot more issues going on. So there's a breaking point about to occur. This is not conspiracy talk, or this is not a forewarning for what can happen. This is an understanding of mindset. This is an understanding of people. I understand people very well, and I know the psychology of people, and I understand the psychology of the mind. How long will it take for someone to break? I want you to look up Chinese water torture. Chinese water torture. Chinese water torture is a method that they would use, and they would just have a drop of water hit your forehead every so often. You didn't necessarily know when it was coming, but it is very effective. How long can you be tortured with water, right? They're not drowning you or anything. It's just a drop of water on your forehead. Very effective. If we look at that, how it's so effective to break the psychosis or the psychology of the mind, imagine what would trying times do to the mind. That means there's going to be people who are struggling. People have been going downhill for quite some time. People who have been getting hit with that drop of water for quite some time. They're going to break. And what happens when people break? They lose it. They don't care anymore. Then that's when mob psychosis steps in, right? Oh, everyone else is doing it. I have to do it too. This is the only way I'm going to survive. I have to survive. The brain is structured for survival. So if the brain is already going to be focused on surviving, and it's going to be trying to figure out how to survive this year, guess what's going to happen? It's going to do anything in its power to make sure it survives. It doesn't matter how dirty your hands have to get. It's going to figure out how to survive. Now, we want to be positive, we want to be peaceful, we want all that good stuff, right? But there's going to come a point when weak-minded individuals are going to snap into, and they're going to say, I don't care about law and order anymore. I care about me. I care about my family. When will that happen? When would that break occur? Is it going to be 2023 or is it going to be 2025? We don't know when it's going to happen, but there's a good possibility that many people are going to break this year mentally. And do they take action now? Maybe, maybe not. But what I can tell you is that many people have been going downhill. And the most common step that's going to happen after people have been going downhill is then people try to start climbing back uphill. How do they do that? Looting, rioting, looking out for themselves, right? They're going to focus on themselves for quite some time. It might be a moment, it might be a situation where they're like, okay, well, I'm going to focus on my family. I'm going to focus on building up the community. We're going to have no leaders that can support us. We're going to just have a free-for-all going on. Though that is not good for us, it might become a reality. And we have to be able to give ourselves a mindset that that could happen. I mean, there's a silver lining here. It's a reset point where once we hit rock bottom, basically, the only thing we have left is to do is build. So we can build up from there. So the people who lose everything, whether they lose their house, they lose, all their material wealth, maybe they lose their family, they can build up again from there. It's going to be very difficult for people, I believe. And right now we're living in a world that people are very uncertain of themselves. And that's why I wrote the blog, The Value of Life. And that's why I did the episode, The Value of Life, because people don't understand the value of their life. They don't understand how much they mean to people. And it's important that we understand that, because when we're going into a hard situation, we need to understand what we're capable of and what is our value. In all honesty, the sad truth is many people are not going to even do the work. They're not going to do the work to figure out their value. They're not going to figure out the work to figure out what type of changes they can make, and they start to make those changes. They're just going to allow the world to move them the way that they're being moved, their circumstances, and they're going to have excuses for the reason why they don't have things in their life. But the fact that you're here with me and you're listening to this podcast and you're listening to this transmission is that you are understanding that you can make a difference in your life for 2023, whether the world tries to end and we say, no, thank you, world. You can end it on your own accord, but my world is going to keep on turning. And we don't even have to be fictitious, because we can really understand that we can make some changes. Now, if the stock market crashes, when's the best time to buy stocks? In the dip, of course. If the housing market crashes, when is the best time to purchase a home? When the housing prices are down, of course. So there's going to be many opportunities for us to create wealth in our life. And there's going to be many opportunities for us to grow as people in our life, to show us how strong we are. Because we can easily say we got over COVID, we got over the pandemic, and we were unscathed. Though there's some people who lost their lives, rest their souls. There's going to be people who are listening to this right now, and they're going to say, oh, wow, I made it through that. I can make it through anything. But this is going to be a different type of pandemic. This is not going to be a pandemic of an illness. It's going to be a pandemic of the minds. The pandemic of people not knowing their true power. And they're going to allow weakness to take over. I believe Jordan Peterson said something along this line. He says, are you worried about what a strong man can do? You wait till you see what a weak man can do. Because when there's a person who has nothing else to lose, they're dangerous. So they don't care what happens to other people. They don't care what happens to them, to be honest. They have one mission, one goal, and that's to either be better or to not be no more. So they're willing to sacrifice everything in order for their mission or their purpose or their goal, whatever they give themselves. And I can tell you that is not going to be beneficial long term. So that means they have to figure out exactly what they need to do to make some changes. I recommend that many people, they start to do some scenario thinking in their minds, where they think of something that could possibly happen and they ask themselves, well, what would we do, right? What would we do if there was no water coming out of our faucets? What would we do if there was no electricity coming to our home? What would we do if there was no food on the grocery shelves? What would we do? Well, if you don't know what you would do, then of course you're going to panic. And you're going to make mistakes. You don't make clear choices, clear decisions. So you have to make clear choices, have clear decisions, have a clear mindset, clear way of thinking. And if you can't have a clear way of thinking, then you need to figure out how to get a clear way of thinking. How do you do that? There's going to be different methods. You can be mindful. You can break things down into small victories, into micro steps. You can, of course, prepare for any type of situation, both physically and mentally and materialistically. So there's different things that you can do in order to give yourself a safety net per se, if something was to go wrong. But I would recommend that if you are seeing 2023 as a year of possibilities, to keep seeing it as a year of possibilities, Keep looking at the year as full of possibilities, but prepare for the worst. And if you're seeing the world in 2023 as a year of mayhem, a year of maybe recession and drought and of hardship, that's when you're going to need some coaching. That's when you're going to have to figure out how to become a little bit more optimistic. Yes, because there's a possibility that is going to be the reality. But if you're going to be negative from the get-go, you're not going to have as much of a good type of preparation for it. So I recommend that you prepare for it mentally, physically, materialistically, if you're thinking that something can happen or if you're thinking that something won't happen. But just understand that the world we live in is very uncertain. It's basically that we're teetering on the edge of the cliff and the slightest blow of the wind can knock everything over. And though that is scary and it's a scary place to be, we need to figure that out. We need to figure that out for ourselves. And we need to say, do we make some changes? And it's going to be a difficult concept for people to grasp, especially if they are going to be, living in a fantasy world, thinking everything's going to be okay. Maybe they believe someone's going to come save them. Superman is not going to come save us. We need to be the heroes of our own life. We need to be the people who are going to save our own life. So start to figure out, how can we continue on regardless of what struggles or what challenges come our way? How can we remain resilient in a world full of war, full of famine, full of hate, full of uncertainty? We need to figure out how to get back to our normal mindset of being in power rather than our normal mindset of being in fear. So if you're tired of being in fear and you want to be more powerful in the way you think and the way you act, head over to RevenConcepts.com, get yourself some mindset coaching, and then give yourself a head start on this year. Because no matter what comes your way this year, you can be mentally prepared. You can be physically prepared. You just have to give yourself that mission and that task and that goal. Because if you can do that, then you're going to start to take more action, be more purposeful. And no matter what type of situation, you're going to be equipped to handle bear. And that means you're going to be equipped to handle any situation that might come in front of you. So prepare yourself mentally, physically, materialistically if you want to. Mentally, mindset is going to be the key to survival in this year. It's going to be the key for us to make better choices. It's going to be the key for our whole entire life. We need to make a lot of good actions right now. Because if we don't make good actions this year, any subsequent years are just going to be downhill again. And many people can't afford to go downhill anymore. And we need to figure out how we can get back to the top. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me coachinginsession@gmail.com. And I will see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.